Welcome to the educational research section of www.happynumbers.org. Today's video is dealing with the research problem, the heart of the research process. And the intent of this video is to give some tips and outline some things to consider when you are trying to consider a research problem. And the information used in this module is taken from Leedy and Ormrod, Practical Research Planning and Design, 7th edition, Prentice Hall, Upper Saddle, New Jersey. And I've put the ISBN number there. Excellent text. I'm not in the business of promoting textbooks or anything like that, but I certainly wanted to cite them for where this information, or the majority of this information, comes from. Well, let's take a look. Okay, finding research projects. So you're going to try to develop a research project. And the heart of the process that you're going to go through is the problem or your area of inquiry. If you can clearly state a feasible research problem, then you have actually done the major piece of work that needs to be done. The rest tends to just be grunt work. So there's an old cliche, when a doctoral student has nailed the title of their dissertation, then they are ready to write their dissertation. So the heart of it is locating a problem and being able to define it, or an area of inquiry. And it should be formally stated, indicating that it is an evidence-based inquiry. It should be stated with precision, clarity, should not be ambiguous. And two important criteria to consider. The problem or your area of inquiry should address an important question or area, and it should make a difference. What you're doing should make a difference, and it should advance knowledge or inform practice somehow. It should add something new. And it should involve collection of data and interpretation of data. Without a collection of data and interpretation of data, you really do not have a research question. So those are some things to consider, sort of an overview. And here is a graphic overview. So you start by selecting a problem or area of inquiry. Generally, you conduct a literature review. Now, if you're doing a research proposal, you probably will do a preliminary literature review and expand on it later. But if you actually are doing a thesis or dissertation, you want to do then an exhaustive literature review and to inform yourself on the topic. Then you select a specific research problem, question, or hypothesis. Now, this is important. Many students want to put this step, selecting a specific research problem, up here before conducting the literature review. It doesn't really work well. You come up with an idea, and then you go to the literature, and the literature will inform you, and then you will be able to better inform yourself about a question. So you should do the literature review, or at least a preliminary literature review first, so you can inform yourself about what you're looking at, and then select a specific research problem, question, or hypothesis. Then you'll decide on a research design or a research methodology. You'll have your data collection procedures, your data analysis, and presenting your data. And if you're doing qualitative research, you will probably present your data in narrative form. If you're doing quantitative, where there are numbers involved, some kinds of statistical tables or diagrams, then you interpret your findings, state your conclusions, or generalize about your problem. And that is the research process. Stating the research problem. State the problem clearly, completely, and eliminating misunderstandings and ambiguities. Clearly state the hypothesis or question. Disclose what you intend to do and what you intend not to do. Define terms that may not be understood, and present a clear statement of all assumptions on which the research rests. Avoid problem fragments where no specific researchable goals are expressed, no limiting of the problem. Like Let's suppose a person wanted to research the effects of welfare on children's attitudes. Well, that's a problem fragment. A full research problem or question might be something like, what effect does welfare assistance to parents have on the attitudes of their children towards work? Now, that's a very specific researchable question. Just the effects of welfare on children's attitudes is not. That's a problem fragment. The effect of busing on school children. That's a problem fragment. Might want to look at what must be evaluated and what are the relative weights of those factors in constructing a formula for estimating the cost of busing children in the Contra Costa School District. Much more specific, much more clearly and precisely stated. Here's another example of a problem fragment. Retirement plans for adults. How do retirement plans for adults compare with the actual realization in retirement of those plans in terms of self-satisfaction and self-adjustment? What does the analysis of the difference between anticipation and realization reveal for a more intelligent approach to planning? Again, the first part, retirement plans for adults, that's a problem fragment. This is a much more clear, full, concise statement of a researchable problem. Think through the feasibility of the project that the problem implies. Suppose someone wanted to study, this study proposes to study the science programs in secondary schools in the United States for the purpose of yada, yada, yada. Well, there is no way that anyone could study the science programs in secondary schools throughout the United States. That's not feasible at all. There are just too many schools. So, more precisely, this study proposes to survey the science programs in selected secondary schools throughout the United States. This is a much more feasible approach. Okay, so these are some things to consider in stating the problem. And here are some things to avoid. These are some suggestions about things to avoid. Not all problems are suitable for research. Some lack the interpretation of data. Without interpretation of data, we really do not have research. Avoid the following in considering your research problem. Avoid projects that simply gather existing information and offer no problem solution. Gathering existing information on a topic is not creating new knowledge. I remember when we were buying our house, the real estate agent said, well, let me go do some research, and the next day came back and had a whole bunch of listings for us and stuff. Well, she didn't do research. She went and gathered existing knowledge. She collected existing knowledge for us. But that's not research. Research in this class is considered evidence-based inquiry. That is looking to answer a question. Avoid problems whose sole purpose is to compare two existing sets of data. There's not much point in comparing two existing sets of data because the data already exists. It's not adding anything new. Avoid problems that calculate a coefficient of correlation between two sets of data. Correlation coefficients are a statistic that yields information about the strength and direction of the relationship between variables, but it tells us nothing about why the relationship exists. So the correlation coefficient is purely a statistical measure. It's not a research project. What we might be interested in is why is there a correlation between, or what is the relationship between homework and student achievement? Not is there a relationship. And avoid problems that result in a yes or no answer. So, these are just some general things to try and avoid. And again, this video was about helping you, or trying to give you some tips on how to go about selecting a research problem. Thank you very much. See you next time.